must mean that, well, everyone's going to have access to clean water and clean air, and no one's property is going to be used as a dumping ground because they are at a poverty level. But really what social equity is about impoverishing huge portions of the population and bringing down the developed nations. So you need to be your own press. You need to educate yourself. You need to get out there and educate your neighbors, your community, your real community. You need to help your children understand that they're being indoctrinated from pre-kindergarten to postgraduate school. All of us have a responsibility to ourselves and to others to work for personal freedom. And always remember that even though we work as a group, if we do work as a group, we're all individuals in those groups, and we answer only to ourselves. This is essential. It's essential. As free human beings, this is what we are. We are free, and we need to continue to be free. But we have to become aware and then make our friends and our neighbors and our community aware as well, and work together.
What I'm going to share tonight is going to ruin some very big plans if it's taken seriously. So what I'm telling you is extraordinarily dangerous. This is, if you were to rank this on a scale of 1 to 10, of sensitive, compartmented intelligence, information, this is as high as it goes, 10. You know, I was told my wife, my children, my grandchildren would be killed along with me if I ever mentioned this. This was all planned and known with malice aforethought, and it's all a lie. And they know about it, but they're not telling you because they want to keep you in the dark. This gets into some issues that are going to make me very unpopular with some folks. I don't care. And we don't have time for that. I don't care if you like me, love me, hate me. People got to know the truth on this. I want to be really clear that when this I'm sharing is, I would not do it if I didn't think it could be avoided. I would just keep my mouth shut and retire.
What I want to share tonight is personally very difficult. And the reason it is that this issue and this presentation will be the most difficult one I've done in 26 years. I'm accustomed to giving folks bad news. So this is very, very bad news. And I'm not saying that to be at all melodramatic. I'm telling you what the truth is. And the only reason I'm doing this is that there have been information coming in, pinging my system, indicating that we're getting closer to the hoaxing of events to stampede the world into something that would make them look like a picnic. And there are a number of signs that have been mounting on this issue over the last 6 to 9 months. And I'm gravely concerned about it. My philosophy has always been an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Because if we can do what we should tonight and get the word out about this, there's a chance we can avoid what I'm going to be discussing. So it's a bit like if you were to tell someone they have some signs for a massive heart attack and it's imminent and you can do some things right now, prevent it. You can ignore it and have it and have a code blue where the heart stops and you have to be resuscitated. My goal here, using that medical analogy a little further, is to avoid the attack. And in this case, it would not be a medical emergency. It would be a national security and global emergency orchestrated by people.
After 225 years, you'd think we'd look to our past. Nope. We're looking to our future, where we're innovating every day to raise Jim Beam for 200
people who have been planning this since the 1950s. So what I'm going to be discussing is what in the parlance of the Pentagon, CIA, counterintelligence programs is known as a false INW, or a deceptive INW, or indication and warning. And some years ago, I had a meeting with the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency and General Patrick Hughes, and the focus of that briefing, which was quite extensive, was to give him information so that he would not be deceived in the event of a false or deceptive INW, indication and warning. And so you had people who often, you would think, who would have knowledge of these issues, and it turns out they do not. And then there are other people who should have nothing to do with something this sensitive, who are running the projects outside constitutional oversight of the President, the Congress, and their appointees, and of we, the people, most importantly. I want to be really clear that when this I'm sharing is, I would not do it if I didn't think it could be avoided. I would just keep my mouth shut and retire. I think we can avert this. I think that we can avoid the heart attack, as it were, using the analogy I used earlier. And that's why I'm standing here before you. Otherwise, I would have given up on this in 1994 when I first learned of all of these issues. I have a gentleman who was the third highest ranking man at the Naval Research Labs, who prior to in the Vice President's office saw all the plans prior to it occurring. He's deceased, since I'm talking about it now. I did not talk about it for years. And he was told, I used to stay at my home. He said, look, I was told my wife and my children, my grandchildren would be killed along with me if I ever mentioned this. Now, the mother lode, the sort of the crown jewel of that kind of event is what has been planned assiduously since the 1950s. And that is a threat that would unite the world around a military junta, militarism.
Stuck at home? Quarantine in elegance with a leather desk set from the elegantoffice.com.
That would put all of humanity together, but against one or more extraterrestrial races. Everyone thought, well, we're going to learn that lesson in Vietnam. We forgot it. We had Iraq. We forgot it. So they let a certain amount of time goes by, the population becomes complacent, we have a very short-term memory on such things, and then they move another one forward. Now that plan, which they came up with in the 1950s, has been very carefully rolled out. And I was asked today by a gentleman I was meeting with, he says, when do you think they might do this? I say they began in 1950 something. It's already happened. It's already happened. The false flag has already happened. Now, not the crescendo moment, not the final act, all right? But acts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever, have already transpired. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, these operations figured out that the psychological warfare value of the subject was such that they could set up events that are completely hoaxed, beginning in the 50s and 60s, that would convince people that those events were of extraterrestrial origin, alien, when they were not. And so blur the lines between the actual ET activity and the human stagecraft, as it's called, that most people, including people at the White House, wouldn't know the difference. The problem is certainly not UFO subculture, and certainly not the media. No one in government I know, for the most part, has a clue. Even mid-level people, functionaries, within the majority intelligence committee, MAJIC, M-A-J-I-C, that runs these operations, do not know about this. This is why Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter, the first CIA director when it was formed in 1947, took the place of the OSS, said in a letter that the secrecy surrounding UFOs was a threat to the national security. This is why Eisenhower said the secrecy, unwarranted secrecy is what he said. It could be a threat to our democracy and our way of life. And they were referring to this dynamic. But the problem is, in that vacuum of secrecy, extreme, illegal, unacknowledged special access projects, which is what they're called, at a compartmented level. And I was talking to a gentleman today about this. At least 21 levels, compartments, past the level of the president. 21 levels. That you have a permanent infrastructure that has evolved or spun off from the legitimate government, but that is embedded within the corporate sector, the intelligence community, and the military sector, that is run amok viciously of our liberties and our freedoms. And we'll get into this also. This gets into some issues that are going to make me very unpopular with some folks. I don't care. I mean, we don't have time for that. I don't care if you like me, love me, hate me. People got to know the truth on this.
So we seem to be heading into this uncharted territory. And I wanted to ask you, step back, take some time. What should we be thinking about? What should we be concentrating on?
One of the things that strikes me is the sensation that this is, a bolt out of the blue. It couldn't have been prevented. It couldn't have been resisted. It couldn't have been imagined that this would come to pass, this global pandemic. When you think about the average American, they go to work every day. They spend 10 hours at the office, in the car, away from their family, away from their home. And by the end of the day, they've got no space to think. And now all of us collectively at the same time has been forced into a global sabbatical all around the world, which is an extraordinarily rare event in history. We are at one of the only moments that will be in our lifetimes where the system is so stressed and so overextended and the leadership so clearly out of its league that we have the ability to make not reformative changes, but revolutionary changes, that we can actually change the functioning of society, that we can actually change the structure of the system that controls and influences our lives, the way that we are being monitored, the way that we're being tracked. Because these systems, if we do not change them, will not simply be used to monitor our health. They're going to make decisions for us on an automated basis to determine who gets a job, who goes to school, who gets a loan, who gets a home, and who does not. And we today are being asked in a moment of extraordinary fear, what do we want these systems to look like? And if we don't make that decision ourselves, it will be made for us.
Edward Snowden, thank you for your time today.
Thanks so much, Shane.